Hey everyone, I got a lot of support from my profile picture, and you guys were wondering how I made it in PowerPoint. So today I'm gonna show you how, a little behind the scenes. I'm gonna be creating a brand new character in the exact same style, so you can see exactly how I would go through this process. So the character I'm gonna make is he's like a glitch in the Matrix, whatever. So what I'm doing is I import my circle, and then we're gonna click on the top here, or what I like to do is open the pop-up on the side so it's always there. I'm gonna change the color here, and then what I'll do is I'll make the line thickness to 4 because I think it pops nicest. Then I'll change the color to black because for some reason PowerPoint likes to put it in a navy, and it's hard to notice until you notice, and then it's really off-putting. So I'm gonna choose my colors, but it's not final, so I might change it later. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to shape options and put in the freeform tools, so I can actually draw instead of having to use shapes. So I just kind of go where the shadow would be, but you can overlap it because afterwards now it's going to create a shape, and we can go to the intersect section where it will only show where the shadow is. And then I'm going to set it to have no line and to black on around 80-ish transparency. And then you want to press Ctrl X to get rid of it, undo a bunch, and then once there's no shape, paste it back in, and you've got yourself a shadow. Alright, nice. I'm gonna add my eyes in. And this character's got a bit of weird eyes, not like the other ones, so I'll show you how I did it before a bit later. So, I'm gonna do the same thing before. I'm gonna make eyes white with like red outline to do like some crazy looking eyes. I'll then duplicate it and shrink it inwards to make the effect I'm looking for. Okay, I've duplicated the eye and imported a white semicircle for the mouth. Okay, now we're going to add the teeth, which are going to be sharp. So I took a couple tries with this, which time-lapsed through quickly, but this is how I did the final result. So instead now, I've imported a triangle, and with this triangle, I'm going to go over to the edit to edit the points, to make it not look so uniform, which I think was the problem with the previous one. You can just drag and drop points around. Now I'm going to intersect it to make it look like the teeth are actually inside the mouth. I'll undo it a bunch, like we did with the shadow before, and duplicate the teeth multiple times. Now I'll change the line width of the teeth, and then I'm going to make the background black to make the bottom row of teeth. I moved the black parts around for a while before realizing I probably need to make some new teeth to go as the bottom jaw, which you can see me doing here very quickly. I did then decide that I didn't like the color yellow, so I decided to make something more hologram appropriate and chose a light purple. Next, I'll import a star with many points to try and make some spikes around its head. This star had too many points, so I removed it and swapped it out for one with less points. Then I used the points tool to make it look less uniform and more natural. I then fixed up the line size and changed the color to make it more appropriate. I fiddled around with these colors for a bit, but I ended up on this blue. Next, we're moving on to his body, which is basically just a stack of holographic rings. I changed the transparency of the rings and had them stack on each other, getting smaller and smaller. I also added some purple into the rings to give it some variation. But now I'll move on to the hands, which should just be 2 of the rings with a little ball here. So I just duplicate the rings over, and I imported a circle, which was just the rings with the hole filled in. I then moved on to duplicate it and put it on the other side, and then I start to add some gradienting out, so it looks like he's actually a hologram. I start to add some gradients to the face to make him look more like a hologram. I then use the gradient tool to fade into multiple different colors, from the purple to the blue. I also added some red rings to the body and the hands. Then I added some shadows to the spikes, like we did earlier with the head. I also chose to add some gradients to the eyes to make it look a bit more insane. I also added gradients to the rest of the head. And with that, he's done! I'm also going to make a second version of him in a more insane and psycho mode in red. But as you can see, that's pretty simple because it's just a case of recoloring and changing the sizes of things. I did make his eyes of 2 different sizes to make him appear even more insane. I then used this triangle to get rid of some of the eyes to make him look more angry. And now they're both done. And as promised, I'm going to show you how I do my eyes. So, if we just zoom on this eye here, it's pretty simple shapes. So I'm going to quickly break it down how I do it. So first, I'd import this circle here, make it a similar shape, and square it off a little bit, so it looks perfect. I then duplicate it and intersect it with the other one, so we can have eye color and the white part. Then I'll change the color. Yeah, we can choose any color here. I'll add the pupil, the highlight, and then these lines are a bit tricky because they do want to snap the edges of the walls, so it can be a bit tricky. But when you have your lines, make them all the right thickness and make sure everything's on the light layer. So put the eye and the pupil in front of the lines. Next we're going to make a gradient just to make the eye pop a little more. This step is mostly optional, but I do like to do it. So we're going to put a lighter color in the center and a darker color on the outside. Make sure you set it to radial gradient. And now we're done. You can just shrink it down to whatever size you want. I do recommend keeping everything at the same size because PowerPoint lines keep the same thickness no matter how far away you move it. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video if you enjoyed. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!